So this is First Samuel chapter 16. So a lot of people know about this. Is when Samuel anoints David as the king. So let's read a little bit about it first. And First 16 chapter 1, or First Samuel chapter 16 verse 1. And the Most High said unto Samuel, how long will you mourn for Saul, seeing I have rejected him from reigning over Israel? Fill your horn with oil, and go, I will send you to Jesse the Bethlehemite, for I have provided me a king among his sons. So Samuel said, how can I go? If Saul hear it, he will kill me. And the Most High said, take a heifer with you, and say, I will come to sacrifice to the Lord. And call Jesse to the sacrifice, and I will show you what shall you do. And thou shalt anoint unto me him whom I name unto you. So Samuel did what the Most High spake. He came to Bethlehem, and the elders of the town trembled at his coming. He said, you come peacefully? Like, you come in peace? And he said, peacefully. I come to sacrifice unto the Most High. Sanctify yourselves and come with me to sacrifice. And he sanctified Jesse and his sons, and he called them to the sacrifice. And it came to pass when they were come that he looked at Eliab, and Eliab was Samuel's firstborn son. He said, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. But the Most High said to Samuel, look not on his countenance or the height of his stature, because I have refused him. The Most High sees not as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart. So everybody, you short, that don't mean that's the end of the world. It's about what's inside you. It's not about your looks or your height. God can do amazing things with things that people may not esteem highly in this society. But the scriptures tell us that God looks at the heart. He doesn't look at your physical appearance. He looks at what's inside you, rather than what people see, because that's really what makes the person. Your character is who you are when nobody's around. Your reputation is what everyone thinks about you. But so God is looking more at your character rather than your reputation. So verse 8, then Jesse, he called Abinadab, and he made him pass before Samuel. He said, neither has the Lord chosen him. And Jesse made Shammah pass by, and he said, neither has the Lord chosen him. And again, Jesse made 7 of his sons pass before Samuel. Samuel said to Jesse, the Lord has not chosen these. And Samuel said unto Jesse, are here all your children? And he said, oh, well, there remains yet the youngest, and behold, he keeps the sheep. And Samuel said unto Jesse, send and fetch him, for we will not sit down till he comes hither. So Jesse, he was looking at Samuel was looking at all Jesse's sons. All 7 sons came and they passed before him, and he said, no, these not, they haven't been chosen by God to be the king. And so Samuel's like, hold on, it's something going on. You got another son? And Samuel's like, yeah, I got another son, but he's in the back. He watched the sheep. So his own father didn't really esteem David so highly to even bring him to this dinner. Like David really was like the redheaded stepchild. He was really like, you just take care of the sheep. You're not that important for real. Like even to Jesse, like that's a pretty. No, I'm just trying to set up the context of what we about to see soon, right? So David was in the back. He wasn't even invited to this dinner because he wasn't really seen as somebody who was going to be worthy enough to be the Lord's anointed. So verse 12, he sent and brought him in, and he was ruddy with a beautiful countenance and goodly to look to. And that means he was he's a handsome and he's a handsome young man. And the Lord said, rise and anoint him, for this is he. And Samuel took the horn of oil, anointed him in the midst of his brethren. And the Spirit of the Most High came upon David from that day forward. So Samuel rose up and went to Ramah. So, that's why I say sometimes, this it's a very inspiring scripture about David not being, seeming that important to his own family, but, you know, he was very faithful to his job, even if it seemed like it was a really menial task of watching the sheep. He was very faithful to that task, and he was exalted, in front of his whole family. So it's like, even if you feel like you're doing something that's kind of not important, you got to remember that the Most High sees you, and He will, exalt you in due time. As long as we stay faithful with the little things, He'll give us even greater things to take care of. That David is a great example of that. So let's Now go to the next chapter. Now this chapter 17, this is Goliath's challenge, or when David and Goliath had that historical battle. So verse 1 of chapter 17. Now the Philistines gathered together their armies to the battle, and were gathered together at Shishak, which belongs to Judah, and pitched between Shishak and Asakah and Aphazadaimim. Aphadaimim. But it's just the Philistines and Judah, they were like right next to each other, right next door neighbors. Judah lived like that island, or that coast. He was like on the coast of the Mediterranean Sea. Actually, you know where Gaza is right now with Israel and Gaza. That's where the Philistines actually lived, right there. That Gaza Strip, that was the land of the Philistines. So it was right by the Mediterranean Sea, and because the Philistines were sea people, they were mariners, so they're very experienced, very good fishermen, and very good sea merchants. So they used to travel on the sea a lot, and they had their coastline right there where Judah was, right? So now they're fighting over territory. So verse 2, Saul and the men of Israel were gathered together and pitched by the valley of Elah and set the battle in array against the Philistines. And the Philistines stood on a mountain on the one side, and Israel stood on the mountain on the other side. And there was a valley between them, right? There went out a champion out of the camp of the Philistines named Goliath of Gath, whose height was 6 cubits and a span. Now I remember, I forget how much a cubit is, but that's equivalent to about 8 feet. He was like 8 foot 4, 8 foot 2, something crazy. He was very tall. He's like over 8 feet tall. Um, so it's just like this is what they're going up against, this uh giant man. And yeah, a cubit is 18 inches. So if we did 6 times 18, that's about 104 inches. 104 inches, but something like 8 feet tall. So yeah, 8 feet 8 inches. That's how tall he is. All right, so 6 cubits in span. And so he said he had a helmet of brass upon his head. He was armed with a coat of mail, and the weight of the coat was 5,000 shekels of brass. He had greaves of brass upon his legs, and a target of brass between his shoulders. And the staff of his spear was like a weaver's beam, and his spear's head weighed 600 shekels of iron. And one bearing a shield went before him, and he stood and cried unto the armies of Israel, and said unto them, Why are you come out to set your battle in array? Am I not a Philistine, and ye servants of Saul? Choose you a man for you, and let him come down to me. If he be able to fight with me and to kill me, then will we be your servants. But if I will prevail against him and kill him, then shall you be our servants and serve us. And the Philistines said, I defy the armies of Israel this day. Give me a man, and we may fight together. Now, this is another reason why the Bible is a true historical context, because this is what happened in the ancient world. If y'all remember, like that old film, there was a film called Troy. I think it was starring Brad Pitt, Troy, when he played the mythological Greek mythological character Achilles. Remember when he was Achilles would fight, like one of the Greek city states would choose one of their strongest men, and they would fight another Greek city state, and they would choose one of they find uh, their strongest man. They will fight one-on-one combat, because in the ancient time they said, like, instead of us just fighting our armies and losing thousands of men, how about we just have the strongest man just fight each other, and then the winner takes all. So it's like you would minimize the amount of bloodshed, because it's like, it's we don't want to waste our army, we don't want to waste our men who can fight. If you win, your army's going to bow down to to the winner. So it's like this is very common in the ancient practice. So this is not unheard of when they say we're just going to have a one-on-one battle and the winner takes all. So this is very accurate historically, and so this is what Goliath is putting out there. So let's just have one of your strongest men just fight me, and the winner takes all. All right. So verse 11, when Saul and Israel heard those words of the Philistine, they were dismayed and greatly afraid. Verse 12, and David was the son of the that Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse. For he had 8 sons, and the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. Now, people might be reading that, they'd be like, Ephrathite, he's not from the tribe of Ephraim, he's from the tribe of Judah, right? Well, it goes back to the legal standpoint of David, because you remember Ruth, she was originally married to Nelcom, one of Naomi's sons who died in Moab. He was an Ephraimite. So Ruth, when she came back to Naomi in Judah, she married Boaz. Boaz was from Judah. So Judah is the tribe that adopted Ruth, but from the Levitical law of marriage, when if your husband dies and you're a widow without child, then the next person you marry, you give child for that your deceased husband who didn't have a child. So the uh, he's the heir of that legally, but or genealogically, but legally is through the tribe of Judah. So David is from Boaz's loins, but legally he's from Ephrathite or Ephraimite. So that's why he's Obed was the grandfather of Jesse or of David. David was his father, and then David, so that's how he get the Ephraim. Just in case y'all are a little confused with that, because I was too when I saw that first. So yeah, legally David is Ephrathite and he's a Judite from the tribe of Judah and Ephraim. So, but verse 13. All right, let's read that again. Verse 12. And now David was the son of Ephrathite of Bethlehem, Judah, whose name was Jesse, and he had 8 sons. And the man went among men for an old man in the days, and the man went among men for an old man in the days of Saul. And the 3 eldest sons of Jesse went and followed Saul to the battle. And the names of his 3 sons went to the battle were Eliab, the firstborn, next was Abinab, and third was Shema. And David was the youngest, and the 3 eldest followed Saul. But David went and returned from Saul to feed his father's sheep in Bethlehem. And the Philistine drew near, morning and evening, presenting himself 40 days. And Jesse said unto David his son, Take now for your brethren an ephah of parched corn, and these 10 loaves, and run to the camp to your brethren, and carry these 10 cheeses into the captain and their thousand, and look how your brethren fare, and take their pledge. Now Saul and they and all the men of Israel were in the valley of Elah fighting with the Philistines. So Goliath, he's been talking to all this mess for 40 days. And David goes and, he's told by his father Jesse to go take some food, to his brethren and see how they doing. And David rose up early in the morning, left the sheep with the keeper, and he took and went as Jesse had commanded him. And he came to the trench as the host was going forth to the fight, and shouted for the battle. But Israel and the Philistines had put the battle in array, army against army. And David left his carriage in the hand of the keeper of the carriage, and ran into the army, and came and saluted his brethren. And he talked with them, and behold, there came to the champion, the Philistine of Gad, Goliath by name, out of the armies of the Philistines. And he spake according to the same words, and David heard them. And all the men of Israel, when they saw the man, fled from him, and they were sore afraid. And the men of Israel said, Have ye seen this man that is come up? Surely to defy Israel is he come up. And he shall be that the man who kills him, the king will enrich him with great riches, and give him his daughter, and make his father's house free in Israel. So they said, whoever kills Goliath, King Saul said he's going to give him great riches. He's going to be allowed to marry his daughter, and he's going to be free from paying taxes in Israel. All right. So it's a big reward. It's a big reward, big hit on Goliath's head right now. In verse 26, David spake to the men that stood by him, saying, What shall be done to the man that kills this Philistine and takes away the reproach from Israel? For who is this uncircumcised Philistine that should defy the armies of the living God? And the people answered him after this manner, saying, So shall it be done to the man that kills him. And Eliab, his eldest brother, heard when he spake unto the men, and Eliab's anger was kindled against David. And he said, Why comest thou down hither? He said, Why do you come down? And with whom hast thou left those few sheep in the wilderness? He's saying, You just left the sheep out in the wilderness? I know your pride and the naughtiness of your heart, for thou art come down that thou might see the battle. So Eliab just like, man, you just want to just look around. You You just curious. That's why you're here. I know your pride. You just like seeing this type of stuff. And David said, what have I now done? Is there not a cause? And he turned from him toward another, and he spake after the same manner. And the people answered him again in the former manner. So David was really persistent. That's also another thing about faith. It's like sometimes it's not just about having just one time, instance or occurrence of having faith. You got to sometimes have that persistence and just kind of keep going, almost like an annoying type of manner. Like, man, this dude is always asking questions, or she's always like, you know, curious about something that's like, why do you care? It's like, I care because it's like, it's about it's about my country. It's about my faith. It's like, that's why I actually want to know about it. It's like, it's not about gossip. I just want to know, like something that's, kind of disrespectful to my faith. It's like Goliath is saying some blasphemous things about, David's God. And he's like, what, who is this person that's talking like this? And he's like, what's the reward if we make him shut up? And like, so David was really on that type of energy. So David kills the Goliath, verse 31. When the words were heard which David spake, they rehearsed them before Saul, and he sent for him. And David said to Saul, let no man's heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight this Philistine. So David, he was hyped up. He was like, it's like, don't stress about this. I'm gonna take care of this. And so, David was trying to get the troops hyped up, but they weren't hyped up to fight. They were like, man, this dude talking so much, man. Let's just send him to the king, man, because he got so much zeal in him. Like, it's like we can't even contain it. Let's just see what Saul say about this. In verse 32, and David said to him, to Saul, let no man heart fail because of him. Thy servant will go and fight with this Philistine. And Saul said to David, thou art not able to go against this Philistine to fight with him, for thou art but a youth, and he is the man of war from his youth. And people say around this time David was about 14. Some people say 12. So he's like between preteen, early teenage years. And David said unto Saul, thy servant kept his father's sheep. There came a lion and a bear and took a lamb out of the flock. And I went out after him and smote him, or I killed him and delivered it out of his mouth. And when he arose against me, I caught him by his beard and smote him and slew him. Thy servant slew both a lion and a bear, and this uncircumcised Philistine shall be as one of them, seeing he has defied the armies of the living God. So that's why I say David's confidence wasn't just like a one-time thing. Like that's why I say he was already had this faith in God because he just said that he killed a lion and a bear when he was taking care of his sheep. He said a lion tried to take one of his sheep. He went over there and killed the lion, got the sheep back. A bear tried to take a sheep. He went and killed the bear and came and got it back. Got his lamb back. So he's like, the same God that delivered me from these wild animals, he can deliver me from this Philistine. Like he's like, I had that confidence, like because I've seen it before. That's why sometimes we have to look back on our life to be like, God has delivered us from certain things before. Why would he not deliver me from this right now? It's just like, our testimony and our faith is based off the experiences that we have went through in life. So it's like, it's not just you know, like a one-time thing. People think you just like, oh man, I'm just gonna, gain enough faith for this one-time thing. He's been, helping you gain faith over through your childhood to your adolescence to your early adulthood to now. Like, so it's like, it's not something that just happens magically. It's something that he's been building with you over time. That's the process of sanctification, really. So let's keep going. So David said, moreover, the Lord that delivered me out of the paw of the lion and out of the paw of the bear, he will deliver me out of the hand of the Philistine. And Saul said unto David, go, and the Lord be with you. And Saul armed David with his armor. He put a helmet of brass upon his head. Also, he armed him with a coat of mail. And David girded his sword upon his armor, and he essayed to go, for he had not proved it. And David said unto Saul, I can't go with these, for I have not proved them. And David put them off him. So Saul tried to put him on gave his armor to David, but he said, I can't wear it because I'm not used to it. Like I'm not used to this. And sometimes, just in life, just to try to bring it back, to our lives, like sometimes some people may try to give you certain advice that they went through in life that to try to help you go through the things that you go through, but it's like sometimes you can't, it's not always applicable to your situation. Like sometimes, you have to go through your own journey of life in order to figure out, how it's going to, you know, the, the 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 things that you have to go through, the levels that you have to go through, the demons that you have to fight, they're a little bit different from somebody else. And sometimes you can't walk the same path that somebody can, or that someone already did, in order to, accomplish what you need to do. Sometimes you have to just kind of, go through your own, your own journey and trust in the Lord His way. It's like, when we pray, our Father prays, like, we every day we pray for, new mercy, because every day has a different experience, because you can't really take the old mercy from yesterday and apply it today, because it's a different type of, it's a different day, it's a different experience you're gonna have today. So that's why it's like we pray for, you know, daily bread rather than just the old bread. We pray for a new provision each day. So it's like David's like, I can't wear what you wear, so I gotta do what I'm used to, So verse 4, not being said that, definitely counseling and, wisdom from others, especially older than you, is good, but sometimes you have to have the discretion on what's useful and what's not for your circumstance. So verse 40, and he took his hand in his hand, or staff in his hand, and he chose him 5 smooth stones out of the brook and put them in the shepherd's bag, which he had, even in the scrip. And his sling was in his hand, and he drew near to the Philistine. And the Philistine came out, drew near unto David, and the man that bare the shield went behind before him. And when the Philistine looked about and saw David, he disdained him, for he was but a youth and ruddy and a fair countenance. Remember, David's only about 12, 14 years old. And the Philistine said unto David, am I a dog that thou comest to me with staves or sticks? And the Philistine cursed David by his gods. And the Philistine said to David, come to me, I will give your flesh unto the fowls of the air and the beasts of the field. Then said David to the Philistine, thou comes to me, or you come to me with a sword and with a spear and with a shield. But I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, or Yahuwah Sabaoth, the God of armies of Israel, whom thou hast defied. This day will the Lord deliver thee into my hand, and I will smite you. I will take your head from you. I will give the carcass of the host of the Philistines this day unto the fowls of the air and the wild beasts of the earth, that all the earth may know that there is a God in Israel. So he's like, very confident. And he's saying this, it's like, I want to make sure that people know that, my God is real, your gods aren't real. So it's like this is not just a physical battle, it's a spiritual battle, So that's why it's like, Most High was, very willing to help him, because he was willing to, basically honor the Most High's name, because he's like, this Philistine is trying to dishonor not just the name of the Most High, but also his people. So he's like, no, I'm not gonna let that, slide right now. So we gotta finish this right now. Verse 47, all this assembly shall know that the Lord saves not with sword and spear, but the battle is the Lord. So the battle is Yah's. He will give you into our hands. And you see just the confidence that this young man is showing right now. So he's like, you can see he already believes he's going to win the battle before he even stepped into the ring. So that's what's like, the mentality he has is very inspiring. And it came to pass when the Philistine arose and it came and drew nigh to meet David, that David hasted and ran towards the army to meet the Philistine. David put his hand in his bag, took thence a stone, and he slang it. And it's not like a slingshot. People think it's like Bart Simpson, like a slingshot. No, it's like a sling where you like wind it up and throw it. So it, very painful, very effective. That stone sunk into his forehead, and he fell upon the face of the earth. So David prevailed over the Philistine with a sling and with a stone, and smote the Philistine, and he slew him. But there was no sword in the hand of David. Therefore David ran and stood upon the Philistine, and took his sword, and drew it out of the sheath thereof, and slew him, and cut off his head therewith. And when the Philistines saw their champion was dead, they fled. So David cut off the Philistine's head with his own sword. Just the irony. This man was talking all that mess, and he ended up dying by his own sword. So, that's why it's like, it's really inspired about the faith that David had. But, that's why I just wanted to read that right there to kind of emphasize the faith that this man had, and he had this as a child. So it's like, just imagine, just the confidence you grow. If you start having it so early on in life, you start having more experiences as you get older, and become an even stronger man, stronger with your faith. So let's go on. This is Psalm 51 or Psalm 151. This is actually from the Apocrypha. The Apocrypha is the Greek version of the Bible. There's a copy of it right here. And there's actually an extra psalm in here that's ascribed to David. And we're going to read about it because this is actually a psalm that he talks directly about his experience when he fought Goliath. So this is Psalm 151. The psalm is ascribed to David as his own composition, though it is outside of the number, which is outside the base of the Hebrew Bible of the 150 Psalms. After he's fought in a single combat with Goliath. Verse 1, and it says, I was small among my brothers, and the youngest in my father's house. I tended my father's sheep. My hands made a harp, my fingers fashioned a lyre. And who will tell my Lord? The Lord himself, it is he who hears. So it's like, he's like, I did all this stuff. I'm doing all this little stuff, but who's going to tell my Lord? Who's going to tell my God that I did it? He said, nobody has to tell him. He hears it already. He already sees it. And it was he who sent his messenger, or another translation says his angel, and took me up from my father's sheep. He anointed me with his oil. That was Samuel, right? My brothers were handsome and tall, but the Lord was not pleased with them. I went out to meet the Philistine or the foreigner, and he cursed me by his idols. But I drew his own sword. I beheaded him and took away disgrace from the people of Israel. So that's why it's like, even when people try to curse you or, say negative things about you, you know, that doesn't mean that's your destiny in life. That's why it's like, nobody can curse, when, in Numbers 23, you know, when Balak tried to put a curse on Israel, he said, no sorcery or um, no, no magic or witchcraft or anything like that can harm Jacob, So it's like there's nothing that can, no curse can basically prevail against you. And basically what the Most High is blessed, no one can curse, So it's like, um, David was just an epitome of that. He just exemplified that throughout his young life. This is another precept. This is Ecclesiasticus. This is in a King James 1611 Bible in Apocrypha, the book of Ecclesiasticus in chapter 47. It's a passage about David specifically. We're going to read about it. Verse 2, as the fat is set apart from the offering of well-being, so David was set apart from the Israelites. When they sacrificed the animal, they cooked it almost like a barbecue, they used to cut off the fat. The fat was burnt off like as an offering to God. So that was like the best of the meat. That's what's like saying that David was set apart from the rest of the nation of Israel. He played with lions as though they were young goats, and with bears as though they were lambs of the flock. In his youth, did he not kill a giant and take away people's disgrace when he whirled the stone in his sling? He struck down the boasting Goliath, or he called on the Lord, the Most High. He gave strength to his right arm to strike down a mighty warrior, to exalt the power of his people. So they glorified him for the tens of thousands he conquered, and praised him for the blessings bestowed by the Lord when the glorious diadem was given to him. For he wiped out his enemies on every side and annihilated his adversaries, the Philistines. He crushed their power to our own day. In all that he did, he gave thanks to the Holy One, the Most High, proclaiming his glory. He sang praise with his heart, and he loved his Maker. He placed singers before the altar and made sweet melody with their voices. He gave beauty to the festivals and arranged their times throughout the year while they praised God's holy name, and the sanctuary resounded from early morning. The Lord took away his sins and exalted his power forever. He gave him a covenant of kingship and a glorious throne in Israel. So this is just a testament of David and his faith and the things that he accomplished, because he constantly gave thanks to the Most High. He always was, even through his transgressions, he always was always a reminder of to always honor the Most High through his life, and that's why he was given that covenant of kingship. That's why the King of Kings came through his loins, that be Christ, of course. All right. And I think that's it. Oh no, one more. This is Ecclesiasticus chapter 2. I just want to say this is for people who, just to remind us, that, like I said, when David, before he met Goliath, he went through things in his earlier life to help build his faith. And that's the same way with us. Sometimes we have to look back, not just on our own lives, we look back even in our own family lives and, people that we know, we see that in the past how the Most High has delivered people from certain situations and helped them because they have faith, So we have to always have that faith too. So this one right here, I just want to go down to verse 7 to 10 and 11. Ye that fear the Lord, wait for his mercy and go not aside, lest ye fall. Ye that fear the Lord, believe him, and your reward shall not fail. Ye that fear the Lord, hope for good and for everlasting joy and mercy. Look at the generations of old. See, did ever any trust in the Lord and was confounded? Or did any abide in his fear and was forsaken? Or whom did he ever despise that called upon him? For the Lord is full of compassion and mercy, long suffering. I mean, he's very patient, very pitiful. He forgives sins and saves in time of affliction. Woe be to fearful hearts and faint hands, and a sinner that goes two ways. So it's like, don't be fearful in the heart. Don't have a double minded. Don't be like, oh, I think this, I can do this, but I don't know. Oh, I want to do that, but I don't know. That's like you going both ways, two ways. You can only go one way. You only go one way in a car. Same way in life. You can only go one way, either forward or backwards.